batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Ready to move out.
Before we start, I'd like to say something. There's no reason why you shouldn't have complete confidence in your chances to come out of this thing alive in one piece.
From coast to coast, from border to border, from one end to the other, and all points in between. The Classic Guitar Rock Podcast is on.
Yes! That's awesome!
We crank up and break down the great guitar-driven rock of the 70s and 80s, and you are invited to come along.
We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
And now your hosts, Jeremy and Jeff.
1/2 teaspoon for fast, effective relief.
It's time for the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Hello, welcome to a Friday, and welcome to the next episode of the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. I think we're up to 22 now, Jeff. And how are you, by the way?
This is 22.
22.
I'm doing well. I'm in a new place, a new house, creative house.
I like it.
Funky house.
Jeff is holding down the fort
cool
in our Rocky Mountain headquarters, and he's moved into a new place. And if you're seeing the video, yeah, it looks pretty cool in the background.
How are you?
That. I'm good. That room looks like it will be conducive to artistic muse and influence and inspiration. So we'll be looking forward to good work.
One of my big goals is getting a piano.
Nice. I have a piano, and I actually sit and tinker on it quite a bit.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I'm not any good. You'd think I'd be good as long as we've had it and I've messed with it. But hey, I can play the white keys pretty well, actually, just sitting down. And
you already know how to play in two keys.
That's right. I just do these little Liberace runs, it's kind of cool. It's fun. So
my big thing is having it here for the kids.
Yeah, and that's why we got it. I have 4 daughters, and you can imagine they all took piano lessons. So we have just a little spin-it piano, and so it survived all 4 of my girls. One of my sons started taking piano lessons, but kind of lost interest. One of my big regrets, Jeff, is when I was 10, my mom put me in piano lessons, and I hated every minute of it. And finally, after a year of me whining and complaining, she let me quit. And she said, "You will regret not sticking with piano." And you know what? She was right. She was right. I know the notes, but to actually sit down and read music and play, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's the whole left hand, right hand thing.
Exactly. I just tinker, but a couple of my girls, 2 of my daughters especially, are really good. I mean, they play really well. So
awesome.
That's great.
Nice.
So we don't have a whole lot of news other than I did want to jump in with our friend Dave Collinson. If you remember last week, Dave accurately named or he knew that one bumper that you had played. Mm-hmm. The backstory is Jeff recorded this cool bumper that I believe you entitled it Hot Dog Fuzz. Was right. But then as you played it, you said, wait, that sounds like another song. And so the question we threw out was, if someone can name this song that Jeff subconsciously borrowed from, we'd have a prize for you. And Dave accurately identified that theme song. It was from the A-Team. It was the A-Team theme song. And he just sent us an email that says, "Thanks for the shout out on the latest episode." And we told him that we'd send him some little doodad. We asked him, "Hey, if you're a guitar player, we'll send you something." He said, "I am a guitar player wannabe, but time is always limited with work and family." We feel you, right? We hear you. "I would appreciate anything that you guys send me, but it was fun enough hearing my name on your podcast. Yes, truly a music geek." And he sends us his address. He lives in beautiful Oregon. And so we will be, sending something your way. It's going to be kind of like back in the 1800s when you'd order from the catalog and like 8 months later, something would arrive. It might be that type of deal, Dave. So just don't, but we will get something.
When I'm done unpacking here, I bet you I could find a little something for him.
Hey, well, great. Maybe I can find something too. And you might get a double package, Dave. That just goes to show you that if you email us, good things will happen. You may hear from a Nigerian prince who wants to send $1 million to your account. or something.
You
Who
might.
knows? Who knows what could happen if you email us? classicguitarrock@mail.com. So that's basically what I wanted to share. One other thing, which has nothing to do with music. Jeff, what do you think about all this UFO stuff? The Pentagon is actually posting stuff about UFOs and saying, oh yeah, we've been, they're kind of like starting to roll out this info about UFOs. And I don't mean the band UFO. I'm talking flying saucers. So any thoughts on that?
Was this a recent thing?
Oh, yeah. Just over the last 2 weeks, right?
Because I haven't been paying attention, but I do know in the last year or so, there have been.
Yeah, there have been a lot,
confirmation, partial confirmations. Joe Rogan had on that. I don't know if he was a scientist, probably.
He's had a few guys on over the last year. Jeremy Corbell's the documentary guy. Bob Lazar has been on there.
Yep, Bob Lazar. So yeah, it's interesting. There's got to, for me, there's got to be some motivation or
exactly
ulterior motive.
And here's the thing:
because why would they, or a distraction?
That's what I think. It's a little misdirection. Of course, this isn't a conspiracy type show. Usually, the only UFOs we talk about are the band UFO, right? But here's my deal. Okay, if there are in fact UFOs visiting us, okay, they have been forever. If they wanted to wipe us out, they could have done this all along. And if our governments can't protect us from these UFOs, then why worry about it, right? I mean, there's nothing we can do about it as governments or military or whatever. So just don't worry about it. If these aliens wanted to destroy us, I think they would have by now. So that's.
Well, my big thing is, if I'm at the coffee shop downtown here in Longmont, Colorado, how come no one's seeing something coming down the street or very visible? Why is it always way up over there and it's really quick and how come that's the most sort of we've gotten?
And here's what's
so it's like enough is enough. Like there's so many crazy things happening in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's funny too. You said that because I was just posting something on a Facebook group yesterday that they released this footage from 2020. So it's a year old, right? And it's this grainy, crappy, terrible footage. And I'm like, seriously, in 2020, this is the best footage we have? And my comment was, apparently anyone chasing UFOs or Bigfoot only uses Super 8 cameras from 1971. Because it's like everyone in the world has a phone and the ability to shoot clear video. And yet all we still see is this grainy stuff. It's just kind of silly.
CCTV.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I think we should be spending more time rocking out. And,
I agree.
Living, loving, and just enjoying life.
I agree.
The tangible things.
Having barbecues with your neighbors. Turn off all the crap.
Learn some diminished chord.
There you go. And just rock. I agree. So having said that, when we come back, Jeff, one of my all-time favorite albums. I'm really looking forward to talking about this album. We're talking, of course, about the debut from the Cars from 1978. We'll break it all down next on the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
She shadows me in the mirror. She never leaves on the light.
Attention! If you live in Spokane, Washington, and have teeth, this message is for you. Braun and Jarvis Family Dentistry knows teeth. Incisors, bicuspids, canines, molars. No tooth is too big or too small.
I was delighted and impressed. So impressed, I bought the company.
With Braun and Jarvis, you'll have the sweetest grill in the inland Northwest. And let's be honest, nobody wants a funky grill. Braun and Jarvis Family Dentistry. 509-464-2391. That's 509-464-2391. Braun and Jarvis Family Dentistry. Quality dentistry that doesn't suck.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Welcome back to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. Jeff and Jeremy here. We are breaking down the debut album from the Cars, released in June of 1978. It's a great album. It's a great album.
And it's one of those stories, again, where people just got together.
They got together.
And it just seemed like it fit and it worked well. And they came from different places with different styles and boop.
Yeah. And
out on the radio. That was a big thing.
So Rick Ocasek, is it Ocasek or Ocasek? I've heard it both ways. I'm used to calling him
Ocasek.
I do too. So I'm going to call him Rick Ocasek. If it's Ocasek, my apologies. So Rick Ocasek and Ben Orr, they knew each other from way back in the 60s. And I believe around Cleveland, they met each other. They kind of played a little. And this is interesting. Ocasek, he was born in like 47, I think, or maybe 43. Could even be older. I was looking at it earlier. My point is, Rick
44.
44. Okay, so Rick Ocasek is about 10 years older, not than everyone. I think Ben Orr is only a couple years younger than him, but he's 8 or 10 years older, not only than most of the other members of the band, but when he broke, right, when they broke in the late 70s, he was a little older than a lot of his contemporaries. And I don't know what that means other than I think he just maybe had a different set of influences than your typical, rocker starting out in the late 70s. I do remember in the early 80s, this is probably around Heartbeat City, definitely sometime between Shake It Up and Heartbeat City, where I was listening to a Rockline, an episode of Rockline. Do you remember that show? It was a call-in show. The rock stations would play, and the Cars were on Rockline. And I know at the time, this was right on the heels of Rick Ocasek being interviewed in Rolling Stone or something. And of course, interviews are sometimes taken out of context or whatever, but basically Ocasek said he was the Cars. Okay. He was responsible for the Cars and he was the band. And I remember on Rockline, it was kind of awkward. The host asked Rick Ocasek, here Ocasek is with, I think Elliot Easton was there with him and Ben Orr. It might have only been those three that were on the show, but there were other members of the band there. And the interviewer asked Rick Ocasek, well, you're recently quoted as saying that you are the Cars. Would you like to comment on that? And he said, no. And that was it. Never elaborated. No one else in the band said anything. So I always kind of wonder, well, that's kind of weird. And here's the thing, and this is not disparaging about Rick Ocasek. I think he's brilliant. But of all the cool things about the Cars, particularly this album, I would put Rick Ocasek as about number 4 or 5, right? There are several things I think are cooler in terms of contributions than Rick Ocasek's on this first album. And I don't mean to diss him. I just think there are so many elements that come together on this album, and Rick Ocasek is just one of many elements. So to say that he is the Cars, if he in fact said it, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy.
Well, if he's writing the songs,
right?
If he's writing the melodies,
and
that's kind of a huge thing, because if you don't have that, but yes, musicality wise,
yeah,
there's so many equal contributions.
Yeah,
for sure.
And musicality wise, as far as instrumentation, he's probably the least, contributes the least, right? And I'm not dissing him, but as I hear this record, two things jump out at me. First and foremost, it's Elliot Easton's guitar playing, it's Greg Hawk's keyboards. Those are, to me, those are the things that I really go, wow. And then after that, you got other good things. It took me, I would say I'm a pretty big Cars fan. I mean, I'm not huge, but it took me a few years to be able to tell the difference between Rick Ocasek and Ben Orr on vocals.
I mean, I got to say, though, I do like his rrhythm style.
I do.
That crispy,
I do too.
Percussive, just real kind of like stabby at times.
And when you think of the one that it really jumps out at me on, Best Friend's Girl, right?
The first three songs, I think, are almost very similar in that way.
Yes, and that guitar sound, just that rhythm figure at the beginning of Best Friend's Girl, you hear it in Just What I Needed. That, to me, is the quintessential Fender twin. I think they were using twin. I know Elliot Easton was using a twin. It could be a deluxe. It's an old Fender tube amp, just not quite on the verge of breaking up, right? There's just enough hair on it that you're getting that warmth. To me, that's the ultimate clean tone. I love the beginning of Best Friend's Girl, just the way that those simple chords sound so awesome.
I tell you, in the future, maybe starting now, it'd be fun to sort of like check off the songs that you need to use headphones on.
Oh yeah.
So like, we have like guitar picks, like this song is 5 guitar picks.
It's great.
Like this one, when I listened to it in my headphones, it just took on it popped up another level as far as like hearing all the layers and the production, the stereo panning, just the guitar. When you hear it on my little Bluetooth speaker, it's good. But when I hear it in this right side, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
So here's what we'll do. We'll continue to rate the songs based on our guitar pick ratings, but maybe we have a headphone scale, right? Because, some albums are better than others in terms of listening to them on headphones. But I agree, there's a lot going on. Even in your car, you really hear it, moving in stereo. From the title, you can tell something's going to be going on. Even in your car, and my boys, they notice if we listen to it, they go, "Oh, Dad, listen how it goes back and forth." I know, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Right? So I think that would be fun. That would be fun to do.
My thought about them in this album is it's like it shouldn't work, but it ends up being like perfect. Like it's out of place, some of the things, but yet it works. Like whether it's Elliot's country-ish kind of riff,
exactly,
right, and but yet it's the synthy pop rock. So like it shouldn't really work, or you wouldn't think it would, but it does. So it's out of place but perfect. And
even a lot of the reviews that you read about it would kind of allude to the fact that they've got the punk minimalism in the lyrics, kind of quirky lyrics, nuclear boots and drip dry gloves. What the heck is that? But that's what made it fun. Let it brush your rock and roll hair. What is all that stuff about? So we got this kind of goofy Rick Ocasek stuff. You got these simple guitar parts. You already mentioned the rockabilly solo from
killer stuff.
It's beautiful. And it shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. And here's the problem. Their first album was so good, in my opinion, nothing that came after it matched up. Now, that's not to say they didn't have later stuff, but this is my personal opinion. To me, they got progressively. I know Heartbeat City's the huge album, but in my mind, they kind of went downhill. Each album successively got a little less good. Not that they were bad. That's my personal opinion. But I definitely would say the first album's their best, and I would say Candy O is their second best. And then you can debate after those two. But your point.
Heartbeat City had they won like the
video of
TV video of the year and all that. Drive was on that. You might think.
Drive, you might think. Again, a great album and a huge commercial success. They were all over MTV in the early to mid 80s. Remember that?
I remember. Oh yeah.
And then 100%. they kind of called it quits at the top. They had that greatest hits album that came out like in 86 or something, 87. And they recorded Tonight She Comes, which is kind of a catchy little tune also for that greatest hits package. But then they kind of hung it up for a while. And so that was no one is really sure. They're not a band that aired, like the Police, for instance. The Police, you'd hear about all the arguments, and you'd hear the Cars, not so much, right? They just kind of folded, went away. Rick Ocasek had done a solo album. Ben Orr had done a solo album. They both had some top 40 solo stuff that had worked.
So they wrapped it up in about 10 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
The main kind of crux.
Exactly. Because 76 is when they formed, and basically by 87, I think they had wrapped it up. 87. The greatest hits album came out in, I think, 87, and then they were done. Ben Orr died in 2000 of pancreatic cancer.
Brutal.
You know what's cool is if you go back and watch, there was a short-lived, in fact, they played, I didn't see it, but they played at a car show. There used to be a place here in North Idaho, right across the border from me. It was called like the River City Rod Run or something, but it was a big car show that happened every summer. And this guy would always bring kind of older, like I saw Loverboy there 3 times, you know, over the course of 3 years. Hart was there. I think the Steve Miller Band was there. So he'd have some good bands. And one year it was this group called Big People. Do you remember this? Big People was a group consisting of Ben Orr, Pat Travers, Derek St. Holmes, Ted Nugent's singer, Jeff Carlisi, the guitar player from 38 Special.
Yeah.
And then I think the guy's name, Liberty DeVito, Billy Joel's drummer, right? So, and there is a live concert. The quality's not great, but if you YouTube Big People, there's a live show from the mid 90s. And think about it. So they're playing Cars songs, they're playing 38 Special songs, they're playing Ted Nugent songs, they're playing Pat Travers songs. It's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool
to see it.
That's awesome.
There wasn't a 38 Special singer there, so Daryl St. Holmes is singing the 38 Special song. He's a great singer, by the way, but it's fun to check out. But Ben Orr was part of that.
I read something early on with the Cars. You probably read the same thing that Ocasek and Orr, they formed a CSNN style folk rock band.
I saw that, and I can't
called Milkwood.
Milkwood, and I can't imagine that. I mean, that just seems so different from what they ultimately wound up doing.
So I thought maybe I could find something here.
Yeah, really and I think Greg Hawkes played saxophone on some of their music with Milkwood.
Oh yeah, I found it.
Awesome.
Of course, it's on YouTube.
What is it on YouTube? Is there actually
a song? Yeah.
Song. Cool. Okay. So we're going to.
With You, With Me.
With You, With Me. Does it give a year? What year it is? Here's everyone's homework assignment. Jeff's listening to it in his headphones. Everyone's got to go out and listen to Milkwood on YouTube. What's it called? What's the song called?
With Me, With You.
With Me, With You. Okay. That's our
With You, With Me. What did I say? With You, With Me.
We'll find it. Milkwood.
Oh, you know what? It's on Spotify, man.
Sweet. Okay, so we're gonna check that out and get some little roots. Another thing that was interesting.
Wow.
Is it Dave Robinson, the drummer? I think that's right. David Robinson. He designed all of their album covers. Even designed an album cover for the first one, but they didn't use it. They wound up using it on the inner sleeve, what he had designed, which I think is just a collage of pictures, right? But David Robinson is really kind of responsible for a lot of their image things. You know, you think of, I always thought Rick Ocasek was the one that would kind of drive that all, but it sounds like the artistic vision in terms of their logos and their visual appeal and all of that was really David Robinson, the drummer, which was kind of surprising. I know that David, after he left the Cars, owned a restaurant. He was a restaurant owner and doing things. So he was kind of a hipster, kind of into that scene, which was interesting. Again, it comes back to your point, Jeff, that there were all of these elements that when you look at them separately, it doesn't seem like they should work, but they do. Elliot Easton's background. Let me tell you my brush with fame story. Have I told you my brush with fame story with Elliot Easton?
Let me hear it again.
Okay, so I probably didn't. Maybe I did. So back in 1995, I worked for a radio station here in Spokane, Oldies 101.1, and I got to go up to the Bonner County Fairgrounds, and there was a band playing there called Creedence Clearwater Revisited. Now in the 90s, Stu Cook and Doug Clifford, they got together. They tried to get Fogerty to reunite. Fogerty wasn't having it. So they just said, we're going to do this on our own. So they started a band called Creedence Clearwater Revisited, going out, doing CCR songs. They found a sound alike for the lead singer, and guess who their guitar player was? Elliot Easton.
How about that?
And Elliot Easton cut his teeth on this, CCR. I mean, it was like a clinic He played note for note every CCR song perfect. You know, he just knew them all. And anyways, the point is I met him, and I'll cut the guy some slack. Everything I've heard about the guy is he's just a super nice guy. Very nice guy. I might have caught him on the wrong day or whatever, but I can remember not having a really good experience with Elliot Easton. I won't get into it other than he just kind of, anyways.
There's a podcast called No Guitar is Safe with Jude somebody. I think he's an editor of Guitar Magazine or Guitar Player.
Okay.
And he does these amazing podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
He gets like any guitar player you can name almost, he's got him on. And he had Elliot Easton on, so you should look it up. And
I'll look it up. And I remember in a Telecaster forum, I posted a thing about the negative experience I had with Elliot Easton. And everyone came back and said, that really surprised me because he comes into this forum, he's great, he's blah, blah. And I've seen other interviews, he seems fine. I just might have caught him on a bad day. I just wasn't super impressed. But that's the problem when you meet your idols, right? Is you realize they're human. So maybe someday I'll meet him again. I had an even worse experience meeting Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits. That's a whole nother story. But anyways.
Why don't we get him on the show?
Yeah, we'll see if we can call him bury the hatchet with these guys. But anyways, met Elliot Easton as he was playing with this Creedence Clearwater Revisited. It was awesome. Seriously, one of the best shows I've ever seen was at the Bonner County Fairgrounds, Creedence Clearwater Revisited. I was right there on the stage the whole show. So I was literally, 5 feet from Elliot Easton. It was pretty awesome, actually.
Cool. That's awesome.
But that was great. But I'm a huge, huge fan of this album. Roy Thomas Baker, who was a producer for Queen. Some people are critical of the production on this album. I don't know where or why. I think it's brilliant. I think the vocals sound brilliant. I think everything about this album is brilliant.
I think so. In 1978, especially.
I don't know what you can complain about. So we're going to plow through this really quick, song for song. If things jump out at you, we got the first song, Good Times Roll. And I don't know what to say. Full of guitar tones, everything from that little, you got the funky, quirky rhythm going on.
It's that percussive, crispy guitar that, when it's in your headphones, it feels like it's the speakers or the amp is like right here.
And when you listen close, I love this quote. Nuno Betancourt once in an interview was talking about Elliot Easton, and he says, quote, I hate Elliot Easton because he's never played a bad note in his life. And as you listen to this, some of it, you got to listen because it's kind of quiet. And he has all kinds of tasty little fills going on in the background and all these subtle little things as far as, so Best Friend's Girl is a good example. We've already talked about the rockabilly solo, which I spent my whole adolescence trying to learn how to play that solo. And I've never learned how to do it right. It's just brilliant. But you hear all these different, you got Rick Ocasek. We've already kind of talked about that rhythm figure. Then you got these kind of more overdriven riffs that come in. And then you got all these little dwiddlies in the background.
And then you got the cool synth lines.
And you got the synth lines that
which is some Moog or something. It's like some kind of like.
It's brilliant. The whole album is brilliant. Good Times Roll.
I gave that 5 picks.
I gave it 5 picks. Okay, spoiler alert, Jeff. I'll just get this. I gave every song but one 5 picks.
Is that right?
Yeah, every song but one I gave 5 picks. Yeah.
Okay. This one, the first 3, right? That's a Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed. That seems to me like the perfect balance of rock, synth, pop, whatever, And then the other ones kind of change a little bit.
They do change.
Except we come back, Bye Bye, and You're All I've Got Tonight.
Yeah.
Those are kind of similar in that same. I'm grouping those like 5 songs.
Yeah. Even though they weren't hits, You're All I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, even Moving in Stereo, those get played a lot on classic rock radio. A lot of people refer to this album, the Cars debut album, as the Cars greatest hits album because, most of their good stuff is not everything. They got some other good songs, but that's just how solid this album is. But Good Times Roll, great song. My Best Friend's Girl. Of the hits, I don't know. I was going to say My Best Friend's Girl is probably my favorite, but Just What I Needed is great. And I spent hours and hours as a 14, 15-year-old trying to work out the solo to Just What I Needed. I just thought it was the coolest solo ever. And I still think it's one of the greatest solos ever.
It is. It really is.
And he is just so tasty, works in double stops and all kinds of just cool stuff into his solo.
Yeah, and there's something going on in the background, like whether it's like dun 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 dun, and he's going do da 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 do da da da.
Yep.
Thinking like that's not something you might type phrasing wise.
Exactly.
Just that wouldn't be the first obvious choice.
And You're All I've Got Tonight has this crazy Mixolydian solo in it. He plays it's not a regular major scale solo. It's like a Mixolydian missing a note. I actually saw a lesson where he goes over that because it's just a very unique sounding, kind of based on Mixolydian, but it's kind of like if you could call it like a Mixolydian pentatonic, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's a really, really unique little scale and tone he gets in that tune. Just a fabulous guitar player. It's awesome. And the keyboard sounds, this was pretty cutting edge at the time. I mean, I think Greg Hawkes was, he was kind of on the leading edge of this. So you got these great sounds that just blend with this more rootsy sounding guitar stuff. It's like a magical mix.
Yeah, and their vocals are fantastic, right?
Vocals are
especially on like My Best Friend's Girl. I remember there's that vocal kind of, it's not an acapella, but it's a harmony thing going on in the back, and it's like a 50s to me.
Exactly,
like sock hop.
Totally,
kind of thing.
Totally.
My best friend's girlfriend. It's like happy, kind of like, oh, I'm gonna pick up my date for the prom.
And that's what the point I was trying to make when I said that. Kasich's a little older. And so I get the feeling that he's kind of drawing on some of this 50s or doo-wop type stuff for a lot of their stuff. Cause you feel that. And of course the vocals, that's Roy Thomas Baker. That's kind of his trademark, right? Getting that vocal sound. But it's great. Yeah. I have 5 picks for Good Times Roll, 5 picks for My Best Friend's Girl, 5 picks for Just What I Needed.
So do I. Ditto. Sometimes you hear something like a guitar riff and you just know instantly what it is.
Right.
For me, like that synth line, I guess it's mostly toward the end, Just What I Needed coming out.
That one.
Yeah. Like the minute you hear that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. It's
iconic.
And there's so many little, so many flourishes that we're so used to hearing these songs for so long. When you actually break them down and listen to them, you're like, wow, first of all, who thought of that? Right? Was that his idea? Was it the producer said, try this? It's magic. It's magical. So I'm in Touch with Your World is the only song I didn't give 5 stars. Okay.
I gave this 3 picks.
I was going to give it 3, but then I decided to give it 4. And here's why. The song itself, it's not upbeat. It's kind of a drag. It's kind of goofy. To me, if there were a throwaway song, I'd say this is the throwaway song. But it's not a bad song. But here's what's cool about it. Sonically, there is so much crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. The synthy kind of thing.
Yeah, all kinds of little swirly sounds. And to me, this almost seems like an experiment they were doing. And so I give them some grace for the effort. I gave it 4 stars. But in my mind,
I said it was ambitious.
Yeah, it was ambitious. It was ambitious. In my mind, it's the weakest song of the album. And it's got some of the cheesiest keyboard sounds in it also. But it is pretty, there's just bings and boings and all kinds of weird stuff going on in the background. So,
it's a nice departure from sort of a first 3 driving kind of like hook.
It's a nice break. It's not a bad song. It's just my least favorite on the album. Then we go into Don't You Stop,
which is my least favorite on the album.
Really? Okay. It's funny you say that because on Twitter I was talking back and forth with some folks, and those 2 songs, I'm in Touch with Your World and Don't You Stop, are the 2 that people are least popular songs on the album. What'd you give it? What'd you give Don't You Stop?
2.75.
3.75?
2.75.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
I just have a thing with new wave.
Uh-huh.
Like this song to me has got a big new wave
Yeah.
vibe to it.
Yeah.
And never really enjoyed new wave stuff. There's some cool stuff in it. Don't get me wrong. But as a song for me.
Yeah. There's some ripping guitar in this song, actually. Pretty good. Yeah. I gave it 5 picks.
My goodness.
Yeah, I know. I'm going too easy on him maybe, but I dig it. Now, because Good Times Roll, Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed. I mean, those have been played so much. You hear so often. I have the actual album here in front of me. I have 3 of these on vinyl. And I
3
don't
copies.
Yeah, I don't remember buying it 3 times, but apparently I've been in record stores. Let me buy that. And then I forget I've got 3 of these on vinyl. And they're all in about the same condition too. I don't know why. Maybe
somebody left one at your party.
Could be. And what's funny is on the liner notes, I'm just noticing as I was looking at this, on this particular copy, and this I bought used, I bought a used record store. So someone apparently was using the lyrics from My Best Friend's Girl as a guide for them to learn the song or something. Cause they've got like, you probably can't.
Oh, cool.
But they've got like, I'm showing Jeff, you won't see this, but they've got like chords written in there. They've got clap 2 times here, play this part twice. So someone has put in notes how to play the song. So apparently someone was learning this song. I thought that's kind of funny.
Wow, that's a good idea. If you were, if you like Jack White, if you had your own record pressing a little thing.
Yeah, man.
Your liner notes could have the lyrics with chords
and stuff. It's a great idea. But my point was, if I'm just going to put it on the turntable and listen to it now, I go right to side 2. That's the side of the 2 that I don't want to say I like it better, because obviously those other songs in side 1 are massive and they're awesome. But just out of sheer repetition, I've heard those so much, I generally put on side 2 and listen to side 2. And it's a brilliant exercise. You're All I've Got Tonight. Thoughts on that?
Throw a phaser on a whole drum mix. And also I think the guitar on the right has a phaser on it, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's one of the top. It's like the first 3. It's this great chorus, big synth.
Yeah.
I love there's a little trill on the guitar.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great solo again. I think every song he's doing something.
Elliot Easton just rips throughout this. And I love how it goes right in the whole song, side 2, every song just goes right into the next song. Bye Bye Love, I think, is a great song. Wait, how did you rate You're All I've Got Tonight?
I gave it 4.5 for some reason.
4.5.
5. I don't know why, but yep.
Do you like that more or less than Bye Bye Love?
I gave Bye Bye Love 4.
Did you? You're tough. I gave them both 5. I just dig them. Bye Bye Love. They're just so hooky. They're just hooky.
I love that. It's like when I see Bye Bye Love, I think the song's going to be like, Bye Bye Love, bye, quick, but he's like, Bye Bye Love.
Bye Love. Yeah.
Maybe that sounds not exciting to people who are songwriters, but to me, it wouldn't come.
So again, my theory, the song's called Bye Bye Love. I bet you Rick Ocasek was a big Everly Brothers song, fan. Again, kind of lyrically, just in song titles. I mean, even on Candio, there's like a song called Shaboop or Beboop or something weird, that just makes me think this is probably something that Rick Ocasek from back in the day, that sensibility is in the back of his head. But Bye Bye Love, I can't pick a favorite song because it would change from day to day. Today, as I was running around this morning and listening to this album one more time, I was really digging All Mixed Up, which is the very last song, which kind of has that more textural, kind of a minor of all the songs on the album. It's the darkest song on the album. But I was like, man, what a brilliant.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah. Moving in Stereo.
This one, for me, instantly brings me back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
Because it's when Bradley, he's in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Judge Reinhold. And Phoebe Cates comes out of the pool.
And he's watching her. Yeah. Yeah.
And then this song comes on.
Yeah.
And it probably was the first time I probably heard the song.
I've mentioned this before, how I had an art class in ninth grade. So this is like 1981. And our teacher had a little turntable. And so people would just bring records in. And as we're working on art, we'd play records. This was one, this and Candio got played a lot in that art class. So that was my kind of first exposure around 1981, just a year before Fast Times, right? Year or two. But yeah, and I was just hooked from then and just loved this album. Moving in Stereo is just, again, it's kind of dark, so the last two songs, Moving in Stereo, All Mixed Up, and I don't want to say they're dark, but compared to the rest of the album, they're both a little, you got some minor stuff going on, a little darker. Sure, a little more synth. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, multiple synth things going on. It's not just a guy playing an organ, right? He's got lots of things going on throughout this album. And he gets writing credit on this. Ocasek gets writing credit for all the songs by himself, but then Moving in Stereo is Ocasek and Greg Hawkes. I gave it 5 picks. So, and All Mixed Up, I gave 5 picks. If I was listening right, there's a saxophone solo in I'm in Touch with Your World, and I think there's a sax solo out at the end of All Mixed Up, and that's Greg Hawkes keyboards and saxophone. So Greg puts a stamp across this whole album. He's very much part of the magic of this album. And as I mentioned, I gave all the songs on this album 5 guitar picks, except for I'm in Touch with Your World, which I gave 4 guitar picks. What was your overall? You were much harder than I was on this. The rockin' and more guitar driven upbeat, I gave 5s. Really just In Touch with Your World and Don't You Stop, 2.5, 275, 3. Okay, so you weren't Bye Bye and Moving in Stereo and All Mixed Up, I did like 4. Okay, so you weren't. I mean, you're not as nice as I am, but you weren't super hardcore on. All right. What did I had something? Oh, the whole the intro to Bye Bye Love is great. Yeah. It's really strong. And then they bring it back for the ending. Which I like, Yeah. Yeah. We do that sometimes in our band, even if it doesn't go that way. We're like, how do we get out of this? Because, on an album, something might fade out. But when you're playing live, how do you fade out Taking Care of Business? Yeah, exactly. Because it's like Taking Care of Business. And then it just fades out. Yeah. So I'm like, well, let's do something stabby or something where we can end it, So I like that they bring back the intro for the end. Yeah, and then it just stops, and then you immediately got the boom, boom, bump, 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 ba-da, ba-da. Yeah, it's very cool. Guitar solo in All Mixed Up reminded me very much of is it Chris Buck from R.E.M.? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Or Chris Buck took from Elliot. From him, yeah. And what's the song? I love the way that Elliot Easton, I'm trying to think, I meant to write this down, but I'll remember it. There's one of the songs where he's got you can tell it's just a Fender amp with the vibrato on. Just this great vintage tone that he's got going on. I can't remember what the song is. And I love that. There's not, of course, it's 1978, so there wasn't as much cheese you could add to your signal back then. But I love the fact that it's pretty straightforward. I was reading an interview that he said this first album, he had a Les Paul, he had a Telecaster, and he had a Fender Twin. And he had an Ampeg amp. I'm not sure which song he used the Ampegs on, but pretty basic. I think I read somewhere that he used, when the Orange, the DS1 distortion came out? It was late 70s, I think. Probably. I think I read that he used that. So when you hear the really overdrivey parts, that's probably a little Orange Boss pedal, I'm guessing. His delay, he said he used a Morley remember when Morley would make these, there was like a wah volume, there was a volume echo pedal or a wah echo. He was using one of those Morley pedals, and he said it had a little disc in it. It wasn't tape echo, but it was just that little disc that you could record a second's worth of whatever and get it some delay with that, because he said there weren't digital delays in pedal form until like the early 80s. So they just weren't available.
Yeah.
Mid 80s. I don't know.
So the volume wah pedal had something mechanical inside? Is that what you're saying?
It was the volume.
I know they make them now.
Yeah,
so.
It was a volume. It was either a volume echo or wah echo, the Morley pedal, right? Those Morleys would have a little button. You could switch between, if it was the wah volume, you switch between wah or volume, or you could switch between wah and echo or volume and echo. But he said the way they got the delay is not instead of a tape, it was like a little, I guess, kind of like a CD would work. You just had a little disc in there, but he said it wasn't digital. So I'm not sure how that worked, but all he said was it had a little disc in it versus a tape. Maybe
I'm looking at it right now.
Maybe it worked like a record. I don't know.
Oh, wow. The one I'm looking at has got this big box behind the pedal.
Oh,
and it's a rotating wah.
Oh,
I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but this is crazy.
It's a Morley.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, yeah. I don't know. Who knows? But that's what and this isn't like drenched in delay. Probably a lot of the delay we hear is just processor, after the fact as they're going into the mix or whatever. But he had a pretty minimal approach in terms of gear, which I think tends to give you the best results, right? keep it simple.
You can't really hide behind your effects.
Exactly. And I think the strong point of this album was, compared to their later albums, as technology advanced, as there were more and more synthesizer options available, as there were more and more, that didn't necessarily make it better. So that's why I think this album, it's their best album.
Do you think in the 80s they got a little more poppy?
Oh, big time.
Less cheese, a little more cheese. Because the 80s, the 80s will do that to you.
It will do you to, and it's not just the 80s per se, especially in the 80s, but I think it's success too. You start out and it's about the music and you do this, but then all of a sudden you're successful, and then it's like, okay, well, it would be nice to have a top 10 album and have girls come to our concert, right? And so then they start, and again.
Yeah, but what I meant was the target, the A&E people and the managers.
Oh.
That's what was selling. That's what was catching on. Yeah. So I think they possibly could have we talked about this.
I'm sure.
Bands get driven down this road.
I'm sure.
That's what's the hot thing.
That happens. I mean, because and I'm not slamming the album, but you look at You Might Think. I mean, it doesn't get any poppier than that, right? You Might Think, Magic. Oh, it's magic.
Yeah.
Again, nothing wrong with those songs. They're great pop songs, but they're definitely not the same level of what we see on this first album, in my opinion.
That's because the 70s ruled.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, but you're wrong if you don't think so.
That's right. So give us your thoughts.
Just kidding.
Give us your thoughts on the album as a whole. If you're ranking this whole album, where does it stand in the history of the world? What do you think?
I am not a expert in this sort of synthy pop rock mix thing, but I would think it's one of the quintessential groundbreaking albums for that blend of synth pop rock with killer melodies, fantastic production, vocals, amazing guitar player. You could hear the different styles and genres come together. Yeah. So it's just that alone is a study. If you were, I guess, a producer, or you just were interested in that kind of thing, or you had a band with multiple styles, it can be done. And
absolutely.
I'm not a big, like I said, a fan of the synthy thing, but they're so catchy. The melodies are memorable, and the lyrics are fun, and it's the high energy songs are danceable. It's got so many things going on.
So we opened this episode talking about aliens. Okay. So if you were going to make a time capsule, you were going to send aliens you're going to send aliens the essential music of the last 100 years. Would this album need to be in there?
I guess it depended on how many choices what was my max?
I don't know. If it
were 10 albums, no.
Okay.
If there were 50 albums, yeah.
All right. Okay. I think it's a pretty important album. I don't know. Again, if I could only send 10 albums to the aliens, I don't know if it would be this one either, but I think if it were 20, I think so. I mean, in my mind of the 70s, and it's all opinion, right? But I would say of the 70s, this would be on my list of the 10 best albums of the 70s. I don't know. I mean, it's all subjective, but it's a great album. It has never lost its luster for me. You know, I can still listen to it. Other albums I've gone back over the years and put them on, and I think, man, that doesn't sound anywhere near as good as I used to think it sounded. But this one, not the case. I still listen to it, and every time I listen to it, I'm like, this is such a great album. So
I said it in the beginning, and it's true, I think, for every genre, every decade. Mm-hmm. You got to have a song. You got to have a melody. You got to have a hook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If he didn't have those melodies, the musicality would be interesting, I guess, to us maybe, and sound good. Mm-hmm. But like you said, to sing along 20, 30, 40 years later, you got a song.
It's all starts with the songs. Yeah, for sure.
You know, like you and me, we play guitar. So I come up with a cool riff, right?
Right.
Okay. Drummer comes in. Sounds killer.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the hook. It's the hook. And there's some people have the gift that they can come up with catchy hooks, and others don't. I mean, you can find better musicians. You can always find better musicians, but some of the best songs, and we've talked about this, some of the best songs throughout the years are not because of the musicianship. It's, to your point, it's because of the song. It's because of the song. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, this is great, Jeff. I was super happy that we could talk about this today. It's a great album. If you've not put the needle on this album or put it in the CD, listen to it front to back with headphones. They don't make them like this anymore. This is a really solid album and a great album, and I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks for recommending it. This was a Jeremy pick.
It was, and it's your turn. So you can, I'm not going to put you on the spot. If you want to assign me one right now, you can, or you can send me an email.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. All right.
I'm more of a Southern rock fan than you.
Okay, cool.
But I've been listening a lot to this Blackberry Smoke album.
You want to do that one?
And let's see if you like it. You can listen to it. Let me know if you like it.
No, I'll do it. I'm going to commit right now. Now this is not really an old album. What year is it?
Well, this one is it's called Like an Arrow.
Okay.
It's 2016.
Okay. So
we talked about what are the newer bands carrying the torch.
Let's do it. So Blackberry Smoke, we're going to cover on our next classic album. Is it a classic album yet? I don't know. We'll see.
It's got some, it's like Southern rock, almost country rock. So I don't know. It's different. It'd be different for us, but there's some kick butt guitar riffs.
Cool. I'm all for it.
All right.
So that'll be on the next episode. Guys, thanks so much. We're getting more and more folks that are following the podcast, which is wonderful. We appreciate it. Check us out on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Classic Guitar Rock. Email us, classicguitarrock@mail.com. And we will see you on the next episode, Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. We'll see you. Have a great weekend.
Keep rocking.
Thanks for listening to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. You can email us at classicguitarrock@mail.com. We'll see you for the next episode of the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.